First of all, I want to thank all my industry associates for being here. Everyone in the room that are carriers, are truckers, get to know everybody else in the room, because everybody that, myself, Peterbilt, the other Freightliner dealers, Tech, Cummins, Kenworth, we're all resources to help you guys stay in business and to get beyond this, this upcoming regulation. And not only beyond that, but in order to really better your business down the road, these of which I will go through, the new technology so immense, and there's so much involved with it, that getting the experts involved on your side, which is our job, is only going to benefit you. And a little side note, there's about 1,900 carriers that need to become compliant by the end of the year. If you do the math, starting July 1st, that's 300 plus carriers that need to become into compliance every month until the end of the year. Inventory is going to be an issue. Inventory is an issue right now, and I think my fellow dealers would agree with that. So the more proactive that you can be right now in looking for your truck, getting to know about the new trucks, the only better it's going to be for you, because there's going to be a big crunch at the end of the year. There's going to be a limited amount of inventory. And the worst thing that we would like to see is that because of the limited inventory, the prices skyrocket so much that if you would have, tried to work toward it 3 months or 4 months, more in advance, you would have got a much better deal for yourself, something that you could better afford. So please be proactive with this whole process. So my presentation, A Trucker's Guide to Compliant Truck Technology, Best Practices, Maintenance, and Care of an Engine's Emission System. Like it said in my bio, I've sold trucks now for 36 years. My dad was a trucker, my grandfather was a trucker. I had a CDL for 25 years, so I know you're part of the business. I'm actually a certified director of safety for NATME, North American Transportation Management Institute. So I know trucking inside and out, and I know how tough it can be. And I know a lot about the best practices. So what I'm trying to do today here is give you information that you can make a better buying decision, upgrading your truck to meet the new mandates that they have put forward. Our discussion today includes commercial truck engine emissions, where we came from, where we are now, EPA clean engine emission mandates. We're going to talk about what is a pre-07 engine, an 07 technology to the 20 tech engine emission levels. 2007 to 2010 engine technologies, what they are and how they work, which means we're going to get into discussing diesel particulate filter technology, SCR and DEF technology review. Down the road, we'll talk about clean truck engine maintenance best practices, DPF cleaning and maintenance, and then buying issues. What does your credit look like, availability of inventory, pricing fluctuations, and some of those type of things. Now, what this slide shows is that the EPA is the one that mandated the clean engine standards nationwide. That wasn't a CARB deal, it came from the EPA. You can see the gold box, that's where we were pre-emission. That's the amount of particulate matter and gases and things that were being put into the atmosphere. And then we had in 1998, we had the first really emissions level when we went to electronics in engine, starting to reduce the amount of emissions that come out of the tailpipe. Both NOx and particulate matter, diesel particulate matter. Then in 2002, which started the O2, was really the 04 engine standard, when we got into EGR, exhaust gas recirculation systems. And then if you look to where the amount of emissions reduction, we went from O2 even to 07, how much less particulate matter and less emissions are being put out of the tailpipe into the air. It's pretty amazing. And then the yellow box is the 2010 emission level. That's the reduction in emissions that are coming out of your tailpipe based on the mandates from the Environmental Protection Agency. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good slide.
Now let's take a look at this. So why the push for the new emission vehicles from the slides you saw before? We're going to pass around this little box, and this actually shows the amount of soot that an engine puts out based on these different emission levels. And for example, if you look at the one with the most amount of soot in it, that's based on horsepower, gram per horsepower hour. So that little tube on the left, and actually, this little tube right here, if you can see that, a 400 horsepower engine would be putting out 400 times that every hour, okay? So then, and that was the old 1988 engine, which means there's no emissions reduction whatsoever. And then with the 1991 level, we actually went down to 1994, which really means more like the 98 level. We went down to here, and now with the 2007 0.01 gram, there's virtually nothing left. It's really a 98% reduction. The mandate says 95% reduction, but it's really 98% or better. So you can take a look at this. This is a tailpipe that I took of a 2016 truck that had 300,000 miles on it. You can see the reduction. You know, an older truck, that would have been black. In fact, not only would the inside have been black, it would have been black probably down about there. So that gives you an idea of the emission reduction going to these new technologies that we've done to clean our air, especially in consolidated areas like we see in the ports. And then an example is, how many times have you seen something like that? That's what affects all of us. So I'm going to get into what is a DPF. Well, it's a combination of a diesel oxidation catalyst and a wall flow filter diesel particulate filter. A diesel oxidation catalyst is an after-treatment component that is designed to convert carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide, CO2, and water. It breaks down pollutants in the exhaust stream from a diesel engine, helping reduce particulate matter. A diesel particulate filter is a device combined to remove 98% or greater of the diesel particulate matter. You'll either see it as PM or DPM, diesel particulate matter, from the exhaust gas of an engine. And so this is a schematic of what actually that looks like. Now this is a little diagram that shows you've got the engine, you've got the hydrocarbon doser, the DOC and the DPF, that would meet the 07 emission level. And then going into the 2010 standards, you've got the SCR catalyst, which is selective catalytic reduction. So that's where you have the pre-07 emission standard. You've got the 07 emission standard with the diesel particulate filter here. And you've got the SCR catalyst here. And now we've got the retrofitting gentlemen in the back. They can actually, if the truck is an older truck and is mechanically sound, they can actually add a diesel particulate filter to basically bring it up to the 07 emission standard. And they will be talking about that after my presentation. Understanding your DPF regeneration system. The DPF collects soot from the engine exhaust. This must eventually be removed to keep the filter from clogging. The process of burning the soot in the filter is called regeneration. High temperatures for an extended amount of time are required for the DPF to be regenerated properly. There's 3 ways for that to happen. Passive regeneration. In this system operation, the engine exhaust temperatures get hot enough to trigger the regeneration during vehicle use. What this means is that the truck is driving down the road, you've got a heavy load, the engine's really having to work, it's creating a lot of heat, which means it's actually passively and internally burning off the soot that's being trapped by the diesel particulate filter and the DOC. Active regeneration. This process may or not require the action of a driver. Most DPFs, for example, automatically dose and ignite diesel fuel in the filter for regeneration. What this means is the truck's still running down the road under load, or it could even be running bobtail. But you're not generating a whole lot of heat, so you're trapping more soot in the filter. So what this does, the engine automatically senses that. It's got a sensor in there and it says, okay, I'm getting a lot of soot buildup. I don't have enough heat from the engine to start burning off the soot. So it automatically starts injecting diesel fuel to create more combustion more temperature within the diesel particulate filter, which actually burns off the DPM. And then the one you guys have heard about the most, the driver initiated, also called stationary part regen. The DPF regeneration light is blinking, so the driver must pull over and proceed with a part regen. This can take up to 45 minutes to complete. Make sure that the driver gives the DPF the required regeneration time so the soot can be completely removed from the filter before the vehicle is driven. Active regeneration DPF should not be parked near flammable materials when the regeneration takes process. The DPF gets hot, which can cause combustion actually under the truck. In California, we actually, especially initially when this technology was very new, we actually saw some grass fires, some guys pulling their truck over into a grassy field, starting the regeneration process, and because of the heat coming out of the exhaust, actually starting a fire. So you want to make sure that when you do a regen, driver-initiated regen, that you know where you're at. And also you need to really keep in mind, based on these statements, where you do your regen inside, or, you know, let's say in proximity to the port, because with it taking up to 45 minutes to do a regen, you have to complete that whole regen. Once you start it, you have to complete the whole thing. And if you're parked somewhere illegal or where you should not be, and they tell you to move, and the second you hit the brake, the second you release, you hit the throttle, the second you release the parking brake, that regeneration stops. You could be 42 minutes into a 45-minute regen, and you now have to start it all over again. So you're going to have to move the truck to a legal place, hit the button again, and now the system's going to make you sit another 45 minutes. So when you do a regen on the truck that you end up buying, make sure that you're in a safe place that you can sit for an extended amount of time. The regen may take 20 minutes, it may take 45 minutes. There's no way to tell. It's based on the soot concentration that's within that filter at that time. Okay? Oh, and afterwards we will answer some questions after, but let's keep the questions till after my presentation, please. And then this actually is a little schematic of how the whole system works. So the exhaust leaves the engine, you got the combustion process which creates NOx and PM. The NOx and PM go into the diesel particulate matter filter, which is where it's trapped. Then you can see the NOx goes down, the diesel the diesel exhaust fluid is ejected into the exhaust stream. The DEF hydrolyzes, which is a chemical process involving water. Puts it into ammonia gas, which mixes with the exhaust. The ammonia NH3 and nitrogen oxides react in the catalyst to form nitrogen and water, which are safe materials that come out of the exhaust. So that's how the 2010 emission standard, that's how it works. And by the way, this presentation will be available on the website, the port's website, so you guys can review this, because there is a lot of information involved. I put this in because every engine manufacturer, whether it's a PACCAR engine, whether it's a Detroit engine, whether it's a Cummins engine, whether it's a Mack, whether it's a Volvo engine, has basically the same process. For example, this is an example of a Cummins after-treatment system. You've got the Cummins diesel particulate filter. You've got the DEF dosing valve, which is where the DEF is injected in the system. The decomposition reactor, which is where that process, the chemical process happens. The selective catalyst reduction, and you can see with these red arrows the reduction in the emissions based on the technology. Part regenerations occur more frequently in local and vocational applications due to the stop-and-go driving and lightly loaded conditions. And especially in your application where you're running in and out of the ports, you don't run into a lot of speed, you typically don't have heavy loads for long, extended amount of times. So if you take a look at the box on the left that says line haul applications, regeneration and frequency, you'll see the passive regeneration box is much bigger. That means they're having to do many fewer regens than you guys would be in a local or construction related application. You're just going to be doing them, you're going to be doing them more, they're going to be doing them less often. In the local and vocational application regeneration frequency, there's going to be a lot more driver interaction, there's going to be a lot more times you're going to have to figure out where you're going to park because you're going to be doing more regenerations, because on a local level, you're putting in more soot, you're not running as hot, which means the filter's going to get clogged quicker, which means you're going to be doing more regens. And as I said before, watch where you park because exhaust temperatures, be aware of those. If you take a look at it under a normal truck like the trucks that you guys have now, pipe surface ahead of the particulate trap right now is between 600 and 800 degrees. That's the exhaust temperature coming out of the stack. In a regeneration, anywhere from 600 to 1,000 degrees. So it's very, very hot. Surface of the particulate trap, of your muffler right now, 350 degrees is how hot your muffler is. 500 degrees is your DPF. Initially, I saw a lot of guys burned by leaning on the side of their truck while it was in a regen, and all of a sudden, you know, that's a $500 or $500 degree piece of steel. Pipe surface after the particulate trap, 600 degrees, normal operation, 900 degrees that pipe can get up to after the regen. Exhaust temperature at the exhaust pipe, 750 degrees, and you can see they can get upwards of 1150 degrees. That's tremendously hot. And they're all going to be like that after the regeneration process, very, very hot. What is DEF? People ask, what is DEF? Diesel exhaust fluid is an aqueous urea solution made with 32.5% urea and 67.5% deionized water. DEF is used as a consumable in the selective catalytic reduction system in order to lower NOx concentration in the diesel emission from diesel engines. How much DEF will my engine emission system consume while I am driving? The system will consume approximately 2% consumption to fuel consumption. So if you just do the math, every 50 gallons of diesel fuel, you're going to use 1 gallon of DEF. Truths about DEF. Is it a hazardous material? No. Urea, the hazardous identification, urea solution is not flammable. First aid measures, wash thoroughly with soap and water. If I was a firefighter, firefighting measures, urea solution is not flammable. It's not flammable. Urea solution is not listed by any U.S. or Canadian Transportation Authority as a hazardous material. As a matter of fact, you could pour this stuff on your lawn and your lawn would look great because it'd make a heck of a fertilizer. DEF at 86 degrees, DEF has a shelf life of 1 year, so you don't have to worry about buying a gallon of DEF, let's say, and putting on the shelf in your garage until you need it. It's going to be good at 86 degrees a year later. DEF will start to freeze at 12 degrees Fahrenheit, but all the new engines have got systems in it to where they sense that, and it will start to melt, get back to its original constitution. So even in really, really cold weather, it's not going to affect the operation of the vehicle. 2010 after treatment dash lamps that drivers now have to pay attention to. This is one thing about 2007 and newer technology trucks. There's a lot of things going on and a lot of lights you need to pay attention to that you currently do not have on your existing trucks. The HES lamp, which is the high exhaust temperature lamp, is the one at the top. The DPF lamp, you'll see that flashing. When that thing starts flashing in a truck with a DPF, that means it's telling you, hey, you've got to pull over and you've got to do a regeneration. This exhaust fluid lamp, it'll tell you about low fluid level warning. We'll get into that. And then the mill lamp, which is one that's extremely important. Malfunction indicator lamp. Some of the newer engines have OBD, onboard diagnostics, and it's a problem. When that lamp comes on, it means you've got an emissions problem with your system. This is another thing. Now we've got on the back table, you guys are more than happy to take it, as well as this is all, well, this is for Detroit, but there's a lot of information here about driver notification lights, what they mean. The Cummins table, please go back and see the guy at Cummins if you're looking to get an engine with Cummins, because talk to the professionals about what all this means. You guys are going to have to learn all this. And we have the resources in the room and available in the future through this room to help you guys through this process and into this process with all this new technology. So you'll see here where, just for example, with the Detroit, the driver notification lamps, I've got a check engine lamp, I've got a high exhaust system temperature warning lamp, I've got a malfunction indicator lamp, I've got a DPF regeneration lamp, a DPF regeneration lamp with a check engine lamp. What does that mean? I've got an engine shutdown lamp, I've got a fuel filter restriction sensor lamp, I've got water and fuel lamp. I mean, this is what you guys are, going to have to learn to deal with your newer vehicles. Regen procedure. There's each one of the manufacturers has regen procedures based on the operation of their regen. For example, with the Detroit, a parts regen procedure would be keep the engine at slow idle. Cannot be in PTO mode, let's say it's in construction. Cycle the transmission out of neutral and back into neutral, into gear, out of gear. It will sense that. Cycle a park brake from off to on. Press and release the clutch pedal. Hold the DPF switch to the on position for 5 seconds. Then release. Engine speed will increase, the DPF lamp will come on, and that means you're doing an active driver-initiated regen. The park regeneration may take up to 40 minutes. The park regeneration is complete when the engine returns to idle and the DPF lamp will come off. The Hess lamp, though, the high exhaust temperature lamp, will remain on until the exhaust system starts to, the temperature starts to drop. The park regeneration will stop if the key is turned to the opposition, clutch is depressed, the truck is put into gear, or the parking brake release. That's where I said if you do any of those procedures in the middle of a regen, you're going to have to start that regen all over. Okay, what happens when a driver ignores the DEF level? Let's see, this is on a Detroit. Watch what happens is the DEF level starts to reduce in the vehicle. See the green lights below? That means that they're using DEF. The 5 to 10%, the yellow light will come on, solid. At 0 to 5%, the red light will be flashing. The check engine light will come on. The engine will be derated 25% of its horsepower. The maximum speed will be 55 miles an hour. The check engine light and the mill lamp will come on. And then if the driver keeps driving the vehicle, after 1,000 hours or 1,000 miles or 20 hours of operation without a remedy from the driver, in other words, fill in the DEF tank, vehicle speed will be limited to 5 miles an hour no matter what the driver does. And believe it or not, we've seen multiple drivers drive for 1,000 miles or 20 hours to the point where they get derated to 5 miles an hour. Why you would ever do that is beyond me, but we do see it happening. Under no circumstances will the engine be shut down due to running the vehicle out of DEF or putting the improper fluid in the DEF tank. That's also another concern that I didn't have in here, but I need to voice, is that do not put anything outside of manufactured DEF, SAE DEF into your system, because if you were to put diesel fuel in your DEF system, if you were to put even regular water in your DEF system, you could be looking at a repair bill up to about $8,500 to replace your DEF system. So DEF only in DEF, okay? So this is a good slide. This is for you guys that might be thinking, okay, do I buy a 2007 emission engine, which would be an 08, 09, or 010 vehicle, versus a 2011 and newer, which has got a 2010 engine? This, for example, is a Cummins engine. The red circle is the sweet spot for an EPA 2010 Cummins. That means that's the operating range. It's much larger. The truck is much more fuel efficient than a truck than a Cummins engine with an 07 emission. So that is it may be a thought, hey, I'm going to buy the cheapest truck I can, which would be an 08. Let's say it's got an 07 Cummins engine in it. It's got a very small sweet spot in it, which means you're going to burn a lot more fuel, plus the active regen that the system puts in. For example, on a Detroit engine, a 2007 Detroit does a regen, uses a gallon for an active regen in the system. For every 325 miles, it uses a gallon of diesel fuel. In a 2010 engine, it goes 3,200 miles before using that gallon of diesel on an active regen. So there's many differences to go to a later technology. The industry really figured it out much more on how to be more efficient in the 2010 engine and newer versus a 2007 standard engine. And you can see that from this slide with the 2007 Cummins versus the 2010 Cummins. Regular maintenance is critical to keeping your truck healthy and operational. Don't let your filter get out of kilter. Keep in mind that the DPF is not a have and forget device. Kind of like you've got the muffler on the truck. You cannot forget about what's going on with the DPF. Protect your investment by understanding the needs of your emission system. And proper care of your engine and DPF can lead to the following things: very expensive repairs and replacement parts. I'll give you a good example. We just took in on trade a 2008 Freightliner with a 2007 Detroit engine. It looked to be a great truck, 700,000 miles. It was DOT certified when we got it. The guy traded it in, it had new rubber. The truck actually looked great. But as soon as we put it on the dyno, things started going wrong. To make a long story short, we spent $6,500 replacing the EGR system and the DPF on that truck. $6,500 bucks. Okay? So These new systems can be extremely expensive to repair. Improper care of your engine and DPF can lead to voided warranty if applicable. So if you've got a truck and it's got a warranty on it and you do something improper that's part of the maintenance process, if you've got an aftermarket warranty or a factory warranty remaining on it and they see that you did something wrong maintenance-wise, you've just voided the warranty on that repair. Engine malfunction or breakdown, you can, especially in the retrofitting aspect of it, you want to make sure that if you're going to retrofit your truck that the engine's in really good shape, because I have seen instances where a DPF's been put on a truck that was suspect, the amount of back pressure and everything put back into the engine actually let go. So again, maintenance of your vehicle is extremely important. Extended downtime, nobody wants to be down, breaking down, and then all of a sudden you've lost a week or two of work, you've lost your plates in the string of whatever carrier you are based on loads. Nobody needs that. Maintain the engine in its original factory condition. Do not exchange filter parts unless allowed by the DPF manufacturer. They cannot be interchanged from one filter to another. Vehicle maintenance is critical. Preventative, proactive vehicle engine maintenance is required to minimize issues with your emission system. Loss of lube oil control can damage or destroy your DPF, leading to expensive repairs. A DPF causes soot from the engine and can mask problems that were formerly detectable by observing exhaust smoke. For example, you've got a leaky injector. You're putting a lot more diesel fuel into the filter. With a DPF, you can't see it coming out the exhaust now because it traps all of that. So it's going to mask that. Reducing soot from your engine also reduces filter plugging and increases cleaning intervals. Fuel injectors, repair and replace any signs of injector misoperation or failure. Worn fuel injectors can lead to excessive fueling and more soot generation and accumulation in the filter. I've seen in severe situations where fuel in the DPF has caused a runaway fire, where a guy loses a tip on an injector, all that fuel goes into the DPF, they put it into a regen mode, and all of a sudden they just created a runaway fire and they burn the truck down. Air filters, replace at intervals required by the engine manufacturer. Dirty air filters reduce airflow to the engine, leading to more soot generation. Turbocharger, check the turbo for proper operation and excessive wear. Turbos that do not produce sufficient air or have leaking seals lead to more soot or the presence of lube oil in the exhaust. Again, that's all stuff that are going into that diesel particulate filter, which is going to affect your overall operation. Fuel filter, replace at prescribed intervals. Look at the presence of lube oil in the fuel filter during regular scheduled maintenance. The blackening of the filter may indicate that oil from the crankcase is mixing with the fuel due to a leaky injector. So just some of the little signs to look for as you guys have your trucks. Even coolant, monitor coolant consumption. Keep a log on the coolant added to the engine. Coolant leakage can poison the DPF catalyst and or cause filter plugging. Most guys don't realize that, but the cooling system has something to do with your DPF system. Lube oil, change the lube oil at mileage intervals indicated by the engine manufacturer. Track your oil consumption and usage and be proactive about it. Because again, the more oil that your engine's burning, based on what it should, is the more contaminations putting into your emission system. Frequent causes of DPF failures. This is what we see quite a bit of. Some after-treatment systems have issues on their own. For example, 08 and 09 trucks tend to have a lot more issues than a 2010 truck because it was the first years of the emission technology. Same with a 2010 engine, which would be an 011 or 012 trucks. We saw a lot more prevalence of problems with them just because the technology was so new. We find much of the trouble fleets have with their emission systems are caused by upstream failures. For example, you're not monitoring what's going on with your turbo. Let's say you've got a leak in the turbo goes out, takes out your DPF, you've just taken out the entire system. For example, on a Detroit with a one box, turbo goes out, takes out the one box, you could be looking at a $2,500 turbo, but you could be looking at a $13,000 emission system. So it's extremely important to monitor your entire system daily. This list reflects the common upstream failures, but is not limited to. Leaky injectors contaminate the DPF and again can cause a catastrophic fire. Excessive idling creates excessive soot buildup. Guys think that, oh, I'm just idling my truck, I'm sitting here, nice temperature, like a day like this. I can't tell you how many times I see a driver sitting at 65 degrees and he's sitting idling his truck, even a new emission truck. You're not creating any heat, which means you're putting excessive diesel particulate filter into soot into the diesel particulate filter, which means, again, you're going to increase your regeneration cycles, and there's no reason for that. Unless it's extremely low temperature or extremely high temperature, don't idle your engine, because an engine idling uses a gallon an hour. That's $4 an hour you're blowing for nothing. Leaky exhaust pipes, manifold gaskets, coolant leaks, EGR system, or the EGR cooler leaks. The so-called 7th injector, which is the doser valve, which actually allows the engine to do an active regen while the vehicle is driving. Turbo failures, sensors and wiring harness failures. These are all things that are now applicable to these newer trucks. And you can see here, that's a picture of a, we see this all the time, of a dirty particulate filter from maintenance issues that have not been addressed. Monitor lube oil consumption. We've talked about a little bit about that before. Some of the components in the lube oil can collect in DPF and cause plugging. Therefore, it's important to ensure that the engine is not consuming lube oil at a higher rate than recommended by the engine manufacturer. Track lube oil usage by keeping a log, how much oil is being used between oil checks and oil changes. Low ash oil, use CG4 low ash oil. Lube oil is recommended. You guys right now may have a preferred oil provider, but you may not know a whole lot about what the oil is. When you get a 2007 or newer truck, you've got to use CG4 oil because it's a low ash oil and it's specifically made in operation with one of these newer technology engines. We'll talk about that a little more. Why do you need to use CG4 oils in newer trucks? Newer emission heavy-duty engines meeting the EPA 2007 and 2010 engine standards are equipped with advanced emission control technologies, including diesel particulate filters and in 20-tex SCR systems. The CG4 performance category was developed to address both the unique needs of these engines and the emission control systems as are required for regulatory compliance. And I just put a slide in there of this oil, and you can see where right there it says CG4. And there are a lot of places like the truck stop don't sell anything but CJ4, but if you guys are using, the guy down the street, the little mom and pop gas station or whatever down the street to buy your oil, you really need to go to the CJ4. Handle the filter with care. Let's say you're gonna pull the filter out yourself. The DPF appears rugged, but it is commonly made is with these very delicate and expensive materials or systems, because they've got very delicate and expensive materials, including ceramics. Make sure the DPF is handled properly during removal and reinstallation. Never bang or tap on the filter because it could crack the filter element. I just had an example about a month and a half ago where one of my technicians was pulling one of the filters out of the trucks and dropped it, cracked the substrate. I was $2,500 into a new substrate just because the thing hit the ground and the ceramics cracked. Replacing the DPF filter element is costly. Cracking the filter element may void the warranty where applicable and requires replacement. When working on your vehicle, do not weld any other components to the retrofit system, cut or disconnect any of the control lines. Those are there for a reason. That's part of the system. And on the left, I've got a picture of a regular filter, and then on the right would be an example of a Detroit one-box system. DPF cleaning basics. The DPF is a maintenance item. It must be removed and cleaned periodically to remove accumulated non-combustible ash from the filter. There are manufacturer OEM reman DPF programs available. For example, Detroit's got a program where you pull the filters out, take it in. They will actually give you reman filters, which are like brand new filters, which actually are good for another 300,000 miles. It's about $2,500, where filter cleaning can be between $1,000 and $1,500. So down the road, if you're looking to have to replace your filter, even clean your filter, look at the reman programs because they're great. Ash removal is different and separate from regeneration. In general, DPF cleaning requires heating the filter using compressed air combined with a vacuum system to blow the ash and capturing it in a sealed container. I can't tell you how many times I've heard small fleets and owner-operators say, yeah, I just pulled the filter out of my house. I pulled it out and I used an air hose to blow out the soot. That does happen, and that is not something to do. Only use filter cleaning procedures approved by the DPF manufacturer. Using improper cleaning methods may probably will ruin the DPF. It can also expose personnel to hazardous waste. That soot is a carcinogen, and by blowing it out and putting it in the air, that is a hazardous waste. Never use the shop compressor in an area to clean the filter. Never steam clean the DPF because all you're going to do is impact that soot back in there even worse. Never wrap on the filter element to remove ash. Unless it's been tested and verified as safe, DPF ash must be handled and disposed as a hazardous waste. Make sure that the filter elements are installed correctly after they are cleaned. Do not reverse the filter elements. Never operate the engine without the filter elements. And then you can see a before and after picture. And then that's, the typical DPF cleaning system is about $100,000. Repairing your truck's emission system is no simple task, and these kind of repairs can be very expensive. And that's a pretty telling slide of a filter that was pulled out. Probably had a leaky, multiple leaky injectors, and look at that. That cannot be cleaned. That filter is now no good, and he's going to have to buy a brand new filter. Disclaimer: it is the responsibility of every truck owner to know the proper maintenance procedures regarding their diesel particulate filter. Contact the manufacturer of the system for all specific maintenance guidelines and procedures related to your specific truck's emission system operation. And again, you've got people in the room. We've got Volvo Mack over here. We've got Freightliner. We've got Cummins. We've got Packard, Peterbilt. We've got Kenworth. You have the experts in the room here, so please utilize that expertise. Now, looking at truck replacement issues, these are some of the things you guys are going to have to look into when you're actually buying the truck. Credit issues. What is your credit history? Do you have I had a guy come in the other day who had a 400 FICO score. I didn't know you could get a 400 FICO score. The average credit that we see right now is about a 650 to 675. Each one of the dealers has got finance sources that probably go as low as into the fives. But that's what's going to be looked at, your FICO level. Have you light credit, which means if you financed a truck before, a trailer before? Are you a homeowner? What lending company you're looking to deal with? The finance term based on the year of the replacement truck. A lot of guys are thinking, I'm going to go out and buy an 08 or 09, it's going to be cheaper. There's very few banks, first of all, that'll finance an old truck like that. If they do, they may only finance for 6 months or a year, which means you're going to have a large down payment. You're going to have a shorter term, which means you're going to have a high payment. Where you could jump into a 2013, 14, even a cheaper 15-year model. A bank's going to finance it for 36, even up to 48 months. You can actually set up financing programs with lower down payments, and you're going to have a reasonable payment on a fairly new, newer truck. Down payment issue, the amount, how much is available? Is there a trade? The problem you guys have got, you're running non-compliant trucks. We're in 2019 year model right now. The trade cycle that we're seeing in the industry is 2015, 2016 year model. There's not a lot of places to go, and if there's 1,900 guys with non-compliant trucks, that means there's 1,900 trucks that are going to supposedly want to be traded in. There's really nowhere to go with that kind of inventory. So that's another reason for you guys to start looking now. Do not wait, because toward the end of the year, nobody's going to take a trade of that year at any amount, other than the gentleman in the corner, Ritchie Brothers. And again, that's going to be a good source, not only to get rid of your trucks, but honestly, to possibly find some trucks. The replacement truck, what's a year model? What's the mileage? What's the spec? For example, you guys run in a local application, in a drayage application, you wouldn't want to buy a big 240-inch wheelbase double bunk condo that's got a direct drive transmission that's really geared to run 75 miles an hour around the country when you're only running local, that's a misapplication of the application based on specification. In other words, the truck's not going to get good fuel economy, you're going to actually end up having more regens. So you really need to think about and talk to the professionals about what the intended spec of that vehicle is versus what you're going to do with it and do for it. The condition of the truck, the price of the replacement truck, how long is the process going to be to get approved? I can guarantee you if you wait toward the end of the year, even the financing end of it, there's going to be so many guys trying to go through the credit process that if you started December 1st, I doubt with many of us, you'd be able to get a truck, even with good credit by the end of the year based on the credit process, finding the truck, getting it through the shop. If there's a grant program, getting, the timelines of that. So again, start looking now. Available inventory, the type of dealership you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a little guy that's got 5 trucks on his lot, or are you dealing with a large reputable dealership that knows how to take care of the vehicle, train you on the vehicle, has good vehicles, DOT certified, does it have a dyno? Trade cycles, again, right now we're in 2015 or 2016 year model, so the slide that we saw before with the year 2012 was a prevalent year model here in the port. Problem is you can't find 2012s in the market now. They're very few. I got 336 trucks in my inventory, and I might have 3 2012s in my entire system right now. So again, available inventory based on year model is going to be a big issue and a big concern. So start talking to your professionals now. Competition for the same truck. With over 1,900 drayage carriers need to upgrade the truck by January 1st of 2019. And not to mention, you guys are having to compete with the guys that aren't part of this deal but have to upgrade their trucks. There's a whole market that's got a monthly turnover that is not applicable to you guys that you're now going to have to compete with the same kind of inventory for. Okay? The non-drayage carriers are upgrading their trucks at the same time. This higher than normal demand will cause for artificial inflation of prices. And a scarcity of the right trucks for your niche and your application. Again, do not wait, start looking now. I put this slide in there because one of the keys that we had success in the California program were getting trucks with warranties and getting third-party warranties. You should consider getting a warranty on your replacement truck because here's some of the potential repair costs that you're looking at on these vehicles today. Turbocharger, $1,600 to $2,500. The turbo actuator, $900. Turbo power turbine, $1,500. EGR valve, $1,500. EGR cooler, $1,800. So you add those two together, that's $3,300 for EGR system, and I've seen them both go out at the same time. Fuel injector, one injector, $1,500. Fuel injector 6-pack, $5,500. Fuel pump, $3,000. Fuel pump with a metal contaminated in the system, $9,000. Okay. After treatment system, $700 to $1,000. After treatment temperature sensor, just the sensor, $1,000. Pressure sensors, $700 to $1,000. NOx sensors, $700 to $1,000. Doser injector, $575 to $675. Diesel exhaust fluid injector, $240 to $375. DOC catalyst, $2,500 to $4,000. Diesel particulate filter, $650 to $6,500. Header assembly, $800 to $1,000. DEF pump, $520 to $720. Metering unit, $1,150 to $1,425. DEF tank itself, $1,500 to $1,850. And for example, the Detroit one box, $8,000 to $12,000 to replace the one box system. So again, when you're looking to upgrade your truck, you really should look at getting an additional third-party warranty, or if the truck's already got some remaining factory warranty on it. Very important in my mind. Replacement trucks that may be suspect. 2014 and older international max force power units due to the questionable technology. I would really look at that because we as an industry, and I think everybody, all the dealers would agree that there was a big issue with 2014 and older max force. you might see some trucks that are, God, that truck is 15 grand under what, you know, these other trucks are, but there's a reason for that, because of the technology and the inefficiency of that technology and the downtime associated with that technology. Truck's over 800,000 miles. You know, has the truck been rebuilt? If not, that truck's ready for a lot of money to be spent on it between overhauls. A typical overhaul now is, you know, can be up to 30,000 bucks. A cheap overhaul now is 20. So these are the things you really need to look at when you're looking to buy a truck. Oh, hey, my brother's cousin's got a truck for sale. It's a 2009 with 1.1 million, but it's only 20 grand. Well, you're going to spend 20 grand just getting that truck on the road or keeping that truck on the road. So you really need to look at that kind of stuff. Trucks without dyno reports. I would make sure that anything I looked at had a dyno report or availability of getting a dyno report. Trucks without current DOT inspections. You can have a truck that could have, you know, a neighborhood of 5 grand worth of deficient issues based on DOT alone. And that's all money that once you get the truck, you would have to spend. So again, best practices, you know, make sure the truck can, you know, you can get a copy of a dyno or has a dyno, and it's got a current DOT, or you get a list of what the DOT repairs are going to be need before you buy it.